So it does make a good segue to maybe my first announcement. We're still trying to decide about B-sides. We definitely had canceled B-sides last year at the last minute for the in-person session, just for the fear of, we would not, at least I would not want to be responsible for any transmission, even to one person, even if they just got a little sick or not even sick at all. So we're still debating what we're going to be doing for this year. I think it goes back and forth. Right now, it sounds like kids are probably going to be vaccinated in September. So I think, our original plan maybe to have an in-person at the end of October could work. We're just kind of still monitoring the situation, see if things stay on track. If not, probably what the plan will be to do is a virtual in about 6 months, and do a in-person probably early in 2022, like March. So about a year from now. So we'll see. I also haven't heard back from iCar at all. so we'll see what happens there. But so kind of stay tuned. I think we'll have by this time next month we'll have a final decision on what we're going to do. So obviously we all want to be back in person together, but I don't want to be responsible for even spreading COVID to one person. So we just have to make sure we do it safe. So that's the update on B-sides. A couple of quick announcements. One is, so Gary had reached out from Ogletree, Ryan's old boss, and was looking for some part-time help for anybody who's looking for some part-time work. Said 20 to 40 hours a week, depending on the week, but helping complete the different vendor security questionnaires that come in, right, for the self-assessment. So if somebody has a background in infrastructure, ideally completing different types of security questionnaires, then reach out. I think David was supposed to be on the line as well, because he works with Gary. I don't see him online, but if that's something that you're interested in, go ahead and shoot me an email, and then I can get you in contact with Gary, or just reach out to Gary Berger at Ogletree on LinkedIn. So appreciate that. So yeah, just like I said, reach out if it's of interest. Trying to think. We're going to send out a questionnaire in short order, looking at scheduling. We want to get back to doing our training classes, and so we're going to be trying to do one for the chapter on a quarterly basis. So was going to send out a survey to get a better idea of what everybody would like to have as options. So like the previous ones, it's low cost, probably $100 with all the money going to the chapter. Students, those of you that might be unemployed right now, are more than welcome to attend for free. So again, we'll get that survey out and start getting those scheduled for everybody. So definitely can't wait to get the training back on track. It's been, I don't know, like 6 months, I think, since we had the last big class. But 450 people. That was a lot of fun. So we'll get that out. I don't see Stuart on, but Stuart, some of you might know, he's one of our students at Greenville Tech. He's just wrapping up his degree this semester, and then he's done. He actually works a day job, so he usually isn't able to attend. But he actually offered some of his time and services as being a webmaster for the chapter, kind of communications director. So he's bringing up a new website for us, which is really exciting, since we haven't had one really in a long time, or the one that is there is very, very old and not kept up to date. So really excited to.
It adds to the mystique.
It does, right? We're a special secret club, right, that nobody knows about.
We're like the chapter that flies under the radar, I feel.
So, right, is that we are very in many different ways, but you know what, I think it works out for us too. So it's kind of like what's that secret club at Disneyland, right? If you go to Disneyland and you can eat at that secret restaurant in was it New Orleans quarter, whatever they call it. So for sure. So yeah, so special thanks to Stuart. He's also going to do the B-Sides Greenville site as well. So that would be cool. I think we're going to actually slightly tweak our domain name, but we'll send out announcements so nobody thinks we're trying to fish them. So, and it sounds like there might have been an issue with some folks getting the announcement. Hopefully everybody got that. But I mean, some of you are here, but I know Charlie mentioned he didn't get his, so we'll just kind of keep an eye out on that. The other things I wanted to mention real quick was upcoming schedule. So next month, Adam Anderson's going to be here. So yeah, Club 33, that's the one. He had a friend that got to be an illustrious member, but his uncle was Walt Disney, so kind of makes sense, I guess. They still made them pay though. Isn't that crazy? So we had Adam is going to come back for next month, and what he's put together essentially is a game to run a tabletop exercise for executives, and it's really about more along the line, especially for our group, looking at us as, most of us as security practitioners in technical security analyst roles, better understanding cybersecurity from the business perspective, from the executive perspective. What type of information are the executives looking for during an incident response? As we're providing updates to the organization, what they need to be best suited to make the appropriate decisions, right? To direct the company during those wonderful times of our lives when there's a significant incident or breach occurring. So I'm actually really excited to see how that works out. I've kind of got a demo run through, so it's kind of interesting. I think we're actually going to do one at Floor with our IT folks, just to, and see how that goes. So kind of interested to see how our different team members like it, and kind of, again, get a little bit more insight into how the executive thinks about not just cybersecurity, but how cybersecurity really plugs into the big picture of the organization overall. So I'm really excited about that. And obviously, Adam's always great to have come and speak. In April, I'm actually going to speak. I'm going to actually talk about industrial control security, which we usually pick up once every other 2 or 3 years. I actually am going to be launching a new free course that I'm going to do, which is a 10-week course based on the book Sandworm, and it's going to be an introduction to industrial control security. So, and it'll actually kick off right after the ISSA meeting. So I thought that was a good time. So that's going to be in April. And then May, I think we're going to have Kevin from Secure Ideas. He's going to come and talk. So he's always great, especially around web application security or anything security realistically. And then have a couple other folks lined up. So really excited. So again, hopefully by this time next month, we'll have some B-Sides plans locked in. And I know we've actually had some of our sponsors reach out and ask us what we're doing. So just kind of let them know that we're still evaluating. But yeah, I think that's everything I had. So probably more than normal. Again, just a reminder, if someone's looking for some part-time work, and I think I saw David pop on. So Ogletree and Gary are looking for somebody to work part-time to do security questionnaires from vendors and probably potential clients and partners. So just reach out if you have any questions. Anybody have anything else they want to throw out there? I know Neil mentioned 60 Minutes on Sunday. They're going to do a story on the SolarWinds breach. So they usually do a really good job on reporting cybersecurity incidents. That might be worth a watch. I already got it YouTube TV set to record it for me. Anybody have anything else? All right, with that, then I will turn it over to Bill. I appreciate Bill for coming and talking about how he brought Greenville County schools into the 21st century cybersecurity style. And so thanks, sir. I appreciate you for being here.
All right, thank you very much. I would say that this has been a very challenging year and a half almost. To give you a little bit of background, in March 13th of 2020, we were given orders from the state to shut down our schools the next day. and switched 77,000 kids over to e-learning and 12,000 employees to remote. And we had 2 days to do it. So it's been an extremely challenging year for us. I'm going to share a screen because the challenges, we didn't stop there. We did a few more things after that. Let me know if you can see this okay.
Yeah, it looks like it's loading. Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. So, you know, a lot of times folks don't know about Greenville County Schools that much. And so what we'd like to do is, you know, kind of put together a brief overview of where we're at and some of the unique challenges that we have. Again, we have close to 78,000 students and 12,000 employees. We're the largest, well, between us and Prisma, we're the largest employers in the largest employer in the upstate. And if you were to take all of our size and the number of folks we have, we're the 25th largest city in the state. So we are relatively big. We're the 44th largest school district in the nation. There's 18,000 school districts and we're number 44 and we keep going up. I will say that we've been back 100% since August and the technology department never left the building. We've been here through the entire pandemic. And so we've learned a lot, like how to keep yourself safe and not sick. Well, let's see if I can move this. So a quick biography. I've been doing this for 40 years and I probably will maybe do it for another 5 and then I'll just kind of like move on to something else. I'm a beekeeper, so I'm going to move on to beekeeping. I've been here at Greenville County Schools for 13 years. My background before that was I worked for a managed service provider, and then I worked for, over the last 4 years, I've worked for 32 Fortune 500 companies throughout the United States. So it's a very wide and diverse background. I've worked at Eli Lilly Pharmaceutical as an example, Dow Chemical, Ford Motor Company, General Motors, U.S. Air Force, U.S. Marine Corps. So Greenville County Schools has this number of devices sitting out there right now. This was taken, I think, as of last week. But we have 110,650 Chromebooks sitting in our students' hands, and they're everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere. We've got half a dozen students in New Zealand, some in Germany, Pakistan, India, Taiwan, Alaska, the UK, Germany, again, like I said, Germany before, South Africa. We have kids all over the globe right now doing e-learning and virtual programmer, which provides its unique challenges when you start dealing with Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, and India. We've got all kinds of different laws sitting there that we have to abide by in the UK, the GDPR. And so it's been very unique challenges. So we have about 14,000 iPads, 7,890 network-based printers, which is a unique security feature on those, is that we require the hard drive be encrypted and we will remove the hard drive and destroy it ourselves before it leaves the building. So those are some of the unique things that we have with printers. Again, 110,650 Chromebooks. We just ordered another 25,000. After 4 years, when the warranty expires, we rotate a new batch in. We have 38,384 Windows 10 laptops and desktops. Our radio system that we have a tower up on Paris Mountain, but we have 4,200 radios. They're all digitally encrypted and connected to our network. So each radio that we have out there has an IP address that we can ping and get to. And then we have 28,510 other devices, and that would be switches, hubs. We don't have too many hubs. I think we might have one, but switches, networking components, firewalls, content filters, web access filters. We have over 2,000 servers on our network right now. And so that pretty much covers it. We are a complete VoIP shop, so we have over 10,000 phones. We are going to 20,000 phones. And so we have a lot of equipment out there. So from the information security perspective, we have 4 people that serve in our information security department. Of course, we have the information security administrator, supervisor. He's also our ISO project manager and lead internal auditor. So he spends a lot of time documenting. We have an information security administrator that handles investigations and outreach. Outreach is a program we put together about 10 years ago. It's been highly successful. It focuses on that one component of your information security plan, which is people. And its purpose out there is to educate people on how to behave on the internet, how to behave using email, how to detect phishing attacks, spear phishing attacks, how to behave on social media. So it's a great outreach program. Since 10 years ago when we put it in play, we've done over 4,000 sessions now. And so we go to schools, community groups, businesses, and we bring up a nice program on cybersecurity and basically how to play on the internet. We have another information security administrator. He handles endpoint security and cloud security. He's like our primary Google Cloud person for security purposes, and then takes care of all the alerts we might get from our Palo Altos regarding malware intrusions and stuff like that. Then we have an information security administrator that handles investigations, contracts, and outreach. I think the unique thing here is contracts. Every application, every Google Chrome extension, every Google Chrome app, every Microsoft app has to go through a vetting process, and it has to be approved by multiple layers of people. And the final level of approval is a data sharing agreement where we have control of our data when we send it to them. Since last year, we've approved over 200 applications and gone through all the contracts. She also handles outreach, so she's out there also doing some of the training. We have a very extensive job description for our security group. We require a minimum of 10 years experience in the field. I will say that out of everybody that's in the group, 2 of them are former law enforcement, where they've retired from being in law enforcement and now have come over to work with us. One of them is from a former military, U.S. Army. He was in the EOD. He's very helpful when we have bomb threats, and yes, we get bomb threats. And so a lot of the people that we have on staff are either former military or former law enforcement with a minimum of 10 years experience. Okay, so one of the things that I'm going to walk into is what we call the challenges. Well, what do we have out there that makes us a little bit more unique than perhaps a regular business? So the internet, you know, I've been around since the internet's been born, and it wasn't designed to have gatekeepers or somebody watching over content and services, or you wouldn't know that today, but originally it kind of like was the Wild West. And that's important to note because a lot of the content that we're having to deal with today is content that there's no gatekeepers. So we've been tracking, these are numbers, you know, everybody knows 1.2 billion websites are out there. There's almost 5 billion internet users. Now, one of the things that's critical to know on when it comes to the 4.9 billion internet users is there's a lot of talk about sexual predators and pedophiles and stuff like that on the internet. But the key thing here is that the bulk of the information we have is of those individuals in the United States and not any other country. So there's all kinds of communications that are happening with our students coming from other countries that they would be classified as a sexual predator in this country. So there's 40 million K-12 Chromebooks. That number has gone up drastically in the last year as school districts rush to find Chromebooks for their students. We like Chromebooks. It solves one of the antivirus issues that we have to deal with. And they're kind of easy to maintain. You just turn them on and walk away, and they have 10-hour battery life. Like I said, we have over 90,000 at Greenville County. The other slide said 100,000. Well, we keep a large spare population. At any given time, we have 5,000 to 6,000 devices being repaired. And so we have to have a very large spare population of devices so that we can swap them in and out. So this is the internet's threat against children. This is the stuff that we're watching. For instance, 70% of children 17 to 18 have accidentally encountered online pornography. Now, the school district by law is required to monitor all students and look for online pornography, but the FCC has realized that no filter is 100%, and I agree with that. And so oftentimes we're having to make special adjustments to like Bing searches and Google searches so that little images don't come up with pornography in them. 41% of unwanted sexual solicitations to our minors. Law enforcement estimates that more than 50,000 known sexual predators are online at any given time. That number is low. We know of a Facebook group that has over 100,000 sexual predators in it. But again, that's just in the United States. They do not know of anyone outside the United States. 69% of teens regularly receive online communications from strangers. I'll show you how we handle that. And an estimated 725,000 children have been aggressively asked for sex online. So to bring it home, the threat is real. This happened in 2012. One of our students, she was a Riverside High School student, was involved with this man that she met on Facebook, and the man came over to her dad's house and tried to kill him. When this first came out on March 28th, we went and pulled all the logs and everything and saw she was using her district device to communicate with the person on Facebook by using a proxy bypass. And then once they got a hold of it, we were able to provide all the information to them. But by the way, it says it was an attempted murder charge. It was later changed to a murder charge because he in fact did kill the father. So we know it's real, and there's a lot of these out there. So one of the things that, like I said before, was email communications. Students are really smart, so are adults. They're moving off of email and going into creating Google Docs and going on to sites like Scratch at MIT and are using their chat features so that they know that, you know, we might not have the capability of monitoring some of these systems. But, you know, there's 251.8 million Americans that use email quite often. And so our email, by the numbers, is that, well, first off, we use the Google Cloud for our email. So everything, all our MX records point through Google, and Google in return handles our anti-spam and antivirus and attachment quarantining. And also, once if a student email goes out through Google and is checked for spam and stuff like that, we then send it to a third-party provider that uses an AI-based analysis system to detect for questionable content, keywords, bullying, threats, harassment. And then that in turn can either block or let the email go through. But on an average day, and you can see over the last few months, you know, we're pushing 800,000 plus emails received a day. And if you look, the inbound email spam, you know, a good portion of these emails are not flagged as spam and are coming in. In the past, we've seen it where like 86% of email coming in was spam, but that's not the case anymore. It's a rather low percentage that's coming in. So we have an incident response team, and it consists of about 8 people, which includes law enforcement, mental health coordinators, counselors, and we're getting a lot. I'll just put it that way. I'll show it to you by the numbers. So this is just since January 1st. On average, we get 57 incidences per school per day, and we have 100 schools. We review, just looking at it, of course, through automation, you know, over 50,000 email messages And, you know, you can take a look at about 120,000 Google Drive files that we actually scan. And the way we scan the Google Drive files is anytime a Drive file is either uploaded or put on into the Drive space, we scan that file, and it can be anything. It could be a spreadsheet, a document file, it could be a movie, it could be images. If it's a movie or images, we actually use an algorithm that detects skin. And if skin comes up as a percentage of the image, then what happens is the image is sent for review. So we are detecting child pornography, students photographing themselves and sending them to their friends. We have all that being currently detected. On an incident per item ratio, we're pretty low, but we're actually above, and that's this blue line here. We're actually above kind of like the national average, quite a bit above it. And then over here, we have the number of items that we're scanning. And at the first of the year, we scan quite a few items. Kids are coming back from school and starting to post more stuff. So if you would have looked at this in December, it would have been pretty low because, you know, we didn't have a lot of things going on then. So over here at the final end is incident type. And these are the incidents that we're actually looking at. Like, for instance, we have a defined set of rules that says that this is what classifies as an incident. And so we've had over 7,009 incidents come in. Now, there are a couple types. One's questionable content, and that's what we call the QCon here. And so, excuse me, 30% of the incidences coming in are questionable. It could be a kid that is mad because their girlfriend broke up with them and they feel really poor, and, you know, they're complaining about it to their friends, or they're going to harm somebody. And then the PSS, which is 168 instances since January 1st, those are ones that are imminent threats. For instance, somebody saying that they're going to come into the school and blow it up, or somebody saying that, you know, I've had it, this COVID thing's driving me crazy, I'm going to just hang myself. Excuse me, I don't have COVID, by the way. So 168 incidences came in. Now that's 24/7. So what we have is we have a methodology in place right now where those type of incidents comes in, they're immediately notified to our security desk, which is a UL approved security center, who then contacts one of either the principal or a person that's on duty at night. And, you know, for instance, if we get something in where there's a student that wants to harm themselves, we're going to actually send a wellness call with the sheriff's office over to their house. And it doesn't matter what time or day it comes in. A lot of times mom and dad doesn't know the kid's using their computer at 2 a.m. until the police knock on the front door. So we had about 168 of those that we had to deal with for now. I will say that in the 30% of questionable content, we can receive, for instance, students taking naked pictures of themselves and emailing it to other people. We will capture those and we will remove them from Google Drive or email so they can't be distributed any further. And then we notify the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who then notifies the Attorney General in the state, who then notifies the Greenville County Sheriff. So we are very aggressive on those type of images. We don't want our students to be sending them off to people, but there are some that do. So one of the things that, since this is the ISSA, we use a layered security model, you know, just kind of like the onion layer. You got to peel everything back. There are a lot of school districts in our state that do not have a layered security model. They basically have their internet to their firewall to their network, and that's it. We have a lot deeper layers, and I'll show them to you. Let's see, here we go. So we'll start from my right, where the internet's coming in. Our internet connection is 10 gigabit bonded circuits. So we have 100 gigabytes of gigabits of internet coming into our network. Right now we're only using 20 gigabit, but we have the ability to go up to 100 if we want to. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security, one of the FBI's fusion centers, monitors all the traffic leaving our internet and coming into it. And we'll tend to get like notifications from them if they're detecting large amounts of data going over to North Korea or Iraq or Iran, so they'll actually send us an email saying, hey, this is Homeland, we've got an issue and we're seeing this and you guys need to take a look deeper into it. We don't really get maybe one notification for them every 3 or 4 years. The firewalls that we use are really good at throttling back and alerting to us on when large amounts of data is leaving the network. That's kind of unusual. So we go from our firewalls to our gateways. You can consider these proxy servers. We use Dan's Guardian proxy servers. We have a cluster of 24 of them. And I'll explain before I leave this why we use those proxy servers. They do handle outbound stuff, but they also handle inbound stuff. Then we have our web filtering, which we consider our web access filters. We use the Barracuda web access filters to front end all of our servers and mitigate things such as SQL Server injections. So we have we have a school of fish here. Between the school of fish and our proxy servers, we have a device in there that the South Carolina Information Sharing and Analysis Center monitors. And again, it's looking for any kind of unusual traffic that's leaving our network. And they too will send us an email saying that you have an issue. But again, we haven't heard from them in 3 or 4 years. And then from there, we drop into our VLANs. So we have multiple VLANs on the network. We have a guest network, which is, of course, is wide open, no password. You can get to it from any school. So, you know, and we had that in there for the BYOD initiative several years ago. That anybody could bring their own device in and connect to our network and go. So there's no antivirus, there's risk of malware, there's risk of viruses. The guest network, actually, the VLAN terminates in a Palo Alto firewall, and then that firewall goes over to our primary firewall. So we're firewalled it twice, the guest network. So if you're on the guest network, you do not see any of our servers. You do not see any of our VMware clusters or anything like that. You just basically get the internet. Student network is a little bit higher risk. We do updates and passwords, and we have antivirus on them, but the student network is actually further broken down into 3 different networks. So we have age-based networks. So the guest network, wide open, but you're limited to where you can get to. The student network, depending upon your age, you could be an elementary student, a middle student, or a high school student, and each one of those goes through a different filtering set. So as you move up into high school, you have less filtering than you had at middle and you had at elementary. And that has to do a lot with the COPA law, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which says you can only, anybody under the age of 13 has to be kind of like really filtered out there so nobody steals their data. Staff network is also filtered. It has its own set of rules as well. And these are all separate VLANs that plug into the different systems. So there's some ingress and egress filters going on between the 3 different VLANs. Now, the reason I said that this is kind of like showing you what the outbound is. I'm on the guest network. I go out through the filters. I'm getting filtered. I go out through the different gateways, proxy servers. And the reason why we do proxy servers here is that our proxy servers on outbound traffic rewrite URLs. And so if you're going to google.com, we're going to send you to safesearch.google.com. So even if you try to turn off restricted searching and everything like that, it doesn't matter. You're still going through the safe search at google.com. Same thing goes with Bing and other search providers where you send them through it, as well as YouTube. If you type in youtube.com, you're going through the education version of YouTube. And that's because our proxy servers are actually rewriting the URLs. Now, when we've sent everybody home with their computer, what we've done is we've hard-coded the proxy servers in all of the Chromebooks and laptops. So when you're at home or at McDonald's or Panera, it doesn't matter where you're at, as soon as your device connects, it goes through our proxy servers. So all the traffic is going to come from the outside in, hit our proxy servers, and then go back out through all the filtering and firewalls back out to the internet. So The same filtering they get in a classroom is the same filtering they get at home or anywhere else there's an internet connection. The same thing holds true for our buses. We have 425 buses with Wi-Fi on it. When that access point fires up, it establishes a VPN tunnel back to our network and goes out through our firewalls. So it doesn't matter if you're using a district computer or your personal phone, you're still going through all of our filtering systems. So a lot of people ask about our data centers. I've had a lot of questions about it. Originally, we were looking at basically outboarding our data centers to other facilities, but then we ran into some breaches and issues associated with servers. And so what we did is we pulled everything back in-house and put them in 2 central locations. So where I'm at is this bottom picture here where it says Primary Data Center is MT Anderson Support Center. If you've ever been in our schools, they're built like a fortress. You know, I'm in an office right now that my walls are concrete blocked, reinforced with rebar and filled with concrete. And I've got T-beams above my head that supports a whole second story. That's pretty much our data centers the same way. In both facilities, it's just, they're built like brick houses. It's just not going anywhere. So primary data center is an MT Anderson Support Center. The secondary is downtown at the central office. Both are connected via dark fiber and both sync at the same time. So we have clusters of Cisco call managers, clusters of SQL servers, clusters of web servers, and the clusters are geographically diverse. I mean, you have half the cluster at the central office and the other half of the cluster here. And then we have a third facility that we can bring online that's outside of South Carolina. We've contracted with both AWS and Google Cloud, and so we can spin up virtual machines whenever we need to do it. Have we ever used it? No. Do we test our data centers? Yes. Every even year, MT Anderson's tested. Every odd year, the central office is tested. So that, and we've also taken them both down at the same time. We've had Duke Power pull one leg of power to our building instead of both legs to see how our generators work. And so we do a lot of disaster recovery testing with our data centers. We've never had to call up the third center, but we can if we have to. So what we did is I kind of give you a little history of Greenville County Schools. It's a rather large enterprise. And there was a proviso, which is kind of like a law for us that came out in 2016 that said that all public subdivisions, and we're considered a public subdivision, must have an information security management system that is either equal to or greater to the state's Department of Administration's ISMS. However, they never told us what theirs was. So we decided that we would look at this, look at this, and we went with this one just because we were looking for a risk management based ISMS. And, you know, understandably, if you try to do a vulnerability scan of our schools, they're so dynamic, they change every minute that it's almost impossible to do a vulnerability scan at a school because you've got kids coming and going and they're bringing their computers in and everything. The only thing you can do is vulnerability scan their, you know, the hard equipment like the switches and the racks and stuff like that. But you just don't have the opportunity to do it. And in some cases, some schools, there's over 4,000 devices just in the school. So we wanted to look for a more risk-based management system. So here's our timeline. Now you might have a hard time seeing it. I'll go through one. In 2008, we added an IT governance section to our technology plan. Now we were required by the federal government and the state government to have a technology plan that doesn't exceed 5 years. And that's tied to some substantial funding coming from the feds. And so, well, we've got to have a technology plan. So in 2008, we added IT governance to it. In 2012, we did a presentation to the board, our board of trustees, on the merits of getting this ISO certification. And we compared it with the NIST certification and the other industry standard certifications at the time. Then in 2013, we added it to goal 3 of our strategic education plan that we were going to get our certification. 2014, we started training. Our security staff received their lead auditor certification for ISO 27001. In 2015, we passed an audit on processes and procedures. And this is like, do you have a continuity of operations plan? Do you have a business continuity plan? Do you have a disaster recovery plan? Do you have processes and procedures for like encrypting computers, for determining which USB drives people can have and use? And so we passed that in 2015. Like I said, 2016, the state mandated that public subdivisions are required to have an ISMS. 2017, we had our first management review meeting and internal audits. So our internal auditing team started auditing. 2018, internal auditors received more training, and then we had another management review meeting where we were talking about incidences and continuous improvement processes. 2019, we presented to the board to seek our formal certification. And then in 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, we had 2 internal audits the first of the year, and then we had a phase 1 audit for certification in July and a phase 2 audit in August, and we passed both of those with 0 non-conformances. So basically, we received our certification in September, which, as you know, is good for like 3 years, and you have to do all this other kind of stuff between now and 3 years. So one of the reasons that we like this certification, and we like it a lot, is that we're required to follow a slew of regulations. You know, HIPAA is one regulation that everybody is kind of aware of. FERPA is the Family Educational Rights Privacy Act. It requires us to protect our data and what data they consider PII and what data they don't consider PII. Then we have Protecting Kids' Privacy Online with COPA, which is, again, Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. And then the FCC has the Children's Internet Protection Act. And then there's another one called the Neighborhood's Children Internet Protection Act. And then we have a whole bunch of titles that we have to deal with. And then we have the Office of Civil Rights, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So what's really nice is a lot of these organizations will sit there and send you this huge questionnaire that you have to fill out, or you just send them your certificate. And that's kind of what we do these days. So it actually reduces the time and resources that we have to expend on third-party audits. Even our financial auditors, when they come in, we show them that we're certified, and usually they just ask a couple questions and walk away. One of the nice things is and I think that you'll hear this from a lot of different folks, and I think it might have been mentioned about getting senior staff involved in tabletop exercises. In order to get this type of certification, you need those people involved in the process. And what I mean by involved, I don't mean here's a tabletop exercise so that you can understand what I'm doing. No, here's stuff that you have to do. And as a good example, our superintendent actually created our training videos to tell everybody what they're responsible for when it comes with regards to cyber and data security. And data security even covers, you know, you have to have a clean desk policy. And so he did a great video on it. We've had support of our board of trustees, all the way down to our finance, our HR, our academics departments, transportation, food and nutrition. Everybody got on board. Department heads from every department are on the management review meeting committee. And it's important that you have that buy-in, because receiving these certifications, regardless of which one you have for information security, requires work from everybody. I mean, I'm not the one that's getting phishing attacks. That's a principal at a school. And so they're involved as well. And that was what really helped a lot, was getting that buy-in. So a lot of hard work was completed to get this certification process. We had to develop high-level policies. So if you go online and look at Greenville County Schools and go into the Board of Trustees, there is actually a board rule called EFE, a board policy called EFE, which talks about this ISMS system. which goes down to a board rule EFE, which is where the administrators get involved and define more rules. And then it actually goes down into the high level policies that we had to create. So high level policies is important. Incident response plan. We have an incident response plan that's very detailed and it covers all kinds of incidences, from your cybersecurity instances all the way down to your bomb threats or student instances. It has contact information, who you're going to call, what you're going to do, what documentation is going to be provided, ethical components to it, like, you know, whoever's working on this is not going to share it with anybody. You know, we do have some state mandated reporting. For instance, if I see child pornography, I'm to report it directly to law enforcement without going through my administration. So a lot of that's defined in this incident response plan. Information security and contracts. We dealt with our procurement department and went through every single contract template that they had and changed them all to have information security as a key critical component to it, especially in breach notifications. You know, breach notifications for a district our size is costly. The stamps alone to mail out 75,000 envelopes is $35,000. So it can cost a lot of money to just go ahead and notify people that we've had a breach or one of our providers has had a breach. We developed information security policies. We've had a disaster recovery plan for over 13 years, but the disaster recovery plan is more than a document now. It actually works, which is kind of important these days. For instance, in there it says that backup tapes are great, but you need to test them every month to make sure you can recover your data. A lot of times we've seen companies where they've tried to restore data and the tape doesn't work, but the backup completed successfully. So we do testing of every 2 weeks of our backup tapes to make sure we can restore from them. And in content management, you've got to have a place where all of this content is going, all these policies, procedures, regulations, rules, laws. And so we had to implement a content management system as well. So some of the lessons learned during this process, you know, again, consider implementing an ISMS, but pick a standard that has top-down management support involvement. That's very important that you start at the top and work your way down. Also, because we've had many breaches, consider providing identity theft coverage as a standard benefit. Okay, so a lot of times when we have a breach, and there's been breaches where we have had no control, like we've sent a CSV file to a vendor, they've signed a contract with us saying they would protect our data gets out in the wild, and we're responsible according to state law to handle the notifications, not them. So, you know, a lot of times we'll provide identity theft insurance to the individuals that have been breached. Now, you know, I think y'all are aware that a breach doesn't necessarily mean the data has been used. So a lot of times when we have breaches, the data's never been used. Encrypt everything: laptops, flash drives, portable storage, cell phones, mobile devices, tablets, data in transit. This is very important. We've had a couple cases a long time ago where a flash drive was found in a parking lot and ended up having student data on it. So now our flash drives are FIPS level 4 and require biometric entry just to use it. And that's the only flash drive an employee is allowed to use with student or staff data on it. The same thing goes with laptops. We've had many laptops stolen out of people's cars. The good thing is there's a lot less heartache when you tell the superintendent that the laptop was encrypted and nobody can get into it without the person's credentials. It just makes it a lot easier. Change passwords frequently. This was really, really, really hard to do in a school district, but we finally got around to doing it. We are using complex passwords and we're changing them frequently. I don't necessarily believe in complex passwords. I still think they can be broken into easily. So all of our administrator accounts are two-factor authentication and require a FIDO key to get into those accounts. So you have to have something with you to get into those. Oh, the biggest thing, you know, my background's IT. my security people, our backgrounds are like law enforcement and security. Hire a technical writer if you're going to do this, because it is a boatload of documentation that you have to write. And so that's one of the things that we did is we hired a technical writer, we hired a risk manager to handle those things. And then awareness. It's a critical component. No matter how good your firewall is, no matter how good your policies and procedures are, you're still going to have that one person that clicks the link and enters their username and password on a fake screen. And next thing you know, their Google account's compromised and sending spam to the world. So awareness is critical. And that's why we have at least 200 training sessions a year with all of our employees, even our students, saying that you watch out for this, and this is a new attack vector. This is called spear phishing. That if anybody asks you for a credit card or anybody asks you for money, disregard who it came from and call them on the phone, because that's kind of critical. And so I'm open to some questions.
So how supportive is the IT group in implementing this policy?
I will say that there's been some hesitation, and it's not the kind of hesitation you think. Basically, the hesitation is because of the length of time it adds. All right, if you got a development group, and I have a development group, and the development group's trying to deliver a product on Wednesday of next week, but you make them go through a comprehensive website scan, vulnerability scan, and that scan takes 2 days to execute. You know, there's hesitation in that area. Can't we speed it up? Can't we just bypass that step? And the answer is no, and no. And so we have to actually build that into our timelines now, especially if you're doing like a prototype, because when a prototype launches, we run a web scan against it. And then when we go into live production, we run a web scan against it. And any updates that people make, we run website scans against it. And yeah, there's some hesitation in that area. There's also some hesitation in some of the areas where I want to use my own thumb drive. I don't want to have to use a biometric thumb drive. But I think after a while, and after you just keep saying no, and they have to keep doing these things, that they build a tolerance to it, and they just do it. It's just become second nature now to them. They understand in development that we're going to have to run a website scan against your code. That's all there is now. So initially there was some hesitation, but it's actually done very well.
And it was
Bill,
more
would
the
you be
shock
willing
of the.
Or go ahead, Bill.
Go ahead, Trent. Sorry.
I was just going to ask you, I know that some of the stuff you can't share, but are you willing to share the non-proprietary information with this group?
I can. What type of non-proprietary information?
Really the steps that y'all went through for your ISO, more than I'm not as much interested in the network topology, but the stuff that you actually went through, lessons learned, that kind of stuff. That's
Yeah,
valuable.
I mean, some of the things that we've been written up on in regard to the ISO. Now, you know, I told you the audit had zero non-conformances, right? Well, prior to that audit, we were doing internal audits. Okay, and the internal audits are the ones that caught some of the stuff that, of course, the external would have caught. Like, for instance, we had 40 tapes sitting on the floor in our data center. And we got written up on that because they should have been moved to our safe over at another facility. Okay, and you know, we got written up on that. There's other things that we should have had a policy or a procedure for this. We were written up on that. People having confidential data on their desk resulted in a CIP, continuous improvement process write-up, and resulted in the clean desk policy. Okay, so there are quite a few things that we discovered initially that never made it to that final audit because we addressed them. But the final audit looked at all of our continuous improvement process documentation and saw all those issues. So we weren't hiding from them that we left 40 tapes in the data center. They saw it. Okay. They just saw that we actually created a process to address that, and then we addressed it. And so it was considered, you know, and I think that was the nice thing about this whole thing is one of the things we got written up on one is we use Palo Alto, so we have some, I think they're 5280s, but we have a panorama box that basically all the Palo Altos drop their log files into. And what it ended up happening is as we increase the number of students doing remote work, our log files were real large, and our amount of storage time decreased from 6 months to 3 months. Well, in our policy, we said we had 6 months worth of storage. So we ended up having to upgrade our panoramas to meet whatever it was that we said we would have. And so, but even then, the panorama box just can't keep up. It's just way too much traffic coming in.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Bill, how much time would you say that you are saving in responding to auditors and third parties now that you have an ISO certification?
I would say it's hours and hours. First off, I'll let you know that we don't go through one audit a year. Okay. When we close our books financially, we go through an audit. Then we have the PCI DSS audits, because we do, you know, there are some schools that collect credit card information, so we have to be PCI DSS compliant. Then we have federal auditors coming in from USAC, which is I can't even remember their name, but it's the FCC's E-rate program where we get federal money, and we get millions of dollars a year. And we have auditors coming in from them auditing as well. And what really helps us time-wise is spending 2 or 3 hours filling out a questionnaire. Have you done vulnerability checks? Do you have a policy for vulnerability checks? You know, and if you say, no, I don't have a policy, well, you better start writing one, because they're going to want it. All right. So then what we do is we just pull that policy for vulnerability checks out of our ISO stuff and give it to them. So it's kind of like all that documentation that we would have been requested for during an audit, we now have and don't have to generate. That's really helpful. Any others?
Anybody else?
I will say it's not an 8 to 5 job, just so you know.
Most security jobs aren't.
Yeah, well, I know you guys know it, but you know, my parents think we just work 8 to 5. Yeah.
Right. And even then, we don't work much, right?
Okay, so Trent says, will I share part of this deck? I'll share the whole deck. The whole deck's been scrubbed. There's nothing in there that's confidential.
Okay, great. And actually, somebody did ask, would you mind if we posted this to YouTube in our ISSA chapter section?
No, I wouldn't mind.
Okay, I appreciate that. I meant to ask you that ahead of time, but usually end up sending an email after the fact. So I really appreciate you for coming and sharing. I think everybody really found it interesting. And as a grandparent of a student in the Greenville County school system, I appreciate all the work that you do. So yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for everybody for coming. And then we'll see you next month and talk about cybersecurity from the executive perspective and how it fits into the big picture of the business. So thanks again, Bill. Thanks everybody. And
Take
stay
care.
safe out there. All right. Take care. Bye.